But the main one that stuck on me was whiskey.
And welcome to another episode of the Bourbon and Ballistics Podcast, the show where we talk a little about whiskey, a little about firearms, and a whole lot of everything in between. I'm your host, Joel Potter. I invite you to sit back, relax, pour yourself your favorite glass as we talk some bourbon and ballistics. Today's show, very exciting. I got my buddy Nick, my new friend Nick.
Pleasure to be here. Cataldo.
Okay, I just want to make sure I had that right. Yeah, Cataldo. Okay, Dovetail Distillery.
Yep.
How the hell are you?
I'm great right now. Temperature's finally cooling down. The warehouse isn't a hot box like it usually is during the summer. Because I was telling you, I make my own malt during the summer. As you can see, it was all cleaned up. But usually the heat's great for that reason. But it runs its course, and now we're into Indian summer. Right. Which is, it should be snowing here in a few weeks, and right. I don't think that's happening.
No, not looking like it.
But yeah, thanks for having me, man. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Thanks for letting me come over here.
Absolutely.
Dovetail Distillery, Mount House, Nevada, just outside of Carson City, for those that are not familiar. How long have you been in business? I guess let's start there.
So I opened in 2020 during the shit show. And I got all the paperwork aligned in June of that year, and I moved out here, officially opened in November of that year. And I've been here ever since. Love Mount House, super cool place. Having lived in, I lived in New York and Miami and all big towns, and it's great out here, man. Hope nobody ever comes. Come and visit, but that's it.
Leave your money here.
Yeah,
that's my personal philosophy too. I love seeing everybody, but it's nice when they go home too.
Yeah, I mean it's a cool neighborhood. Like the craftsmanship that's out here is crazy. Mm-hmm. The people I've met here, the metalsmiths, gunsmiths, carpenters, masons. My neighbor's a mechanic. He's been a mechanic for 50 years. He builds race cars. And the shit that I've learned from the people out here. Can't be more grateful for it. Like literally like life skills, but just it's a cool environment, and everybody likes to help everybody. Like we were talking about, it's just a cool place, man. I'm super happy that I found it, and it was dumb luck.
Let's talk about it, because I know last time I was here we got into the whole story, but it was one of those things that I wish I'd been recording the entire time. So let's talk about the beginning. I mean, before you get into distilling, what did your journey look like?
To this point, from the beginning, so I was a chef for 20 or so years. Lived in New York for 14 years. Worked at a bunch of Michelin star restaurants over there, so that was always my thing. Cooking was my thing. And 2016, I got in this hair up my ass to mess with this sauce that we had on the menu that I had created, and I wanted to remove the color out of it, and I wanted a centrifuge, and they were like, my owners were like, get bent, because they're super expensive. So I ended up buying a still off of Amazon, and I took the sauce and I ran it through the still, and it worked out great. Removed the color, concentrated the flavor. It was cool, and so we added these clear sauces that we'd pour over stuff, which was, at the time, I don't think anybody was doing that, which was great. And then I got into, now I have a still. What else can I do with it? So, started fermenting all sorts of stuff in the boiler room. In the Bowery in New York, and in my apartment in the Upper East Side. And kind of snowballed from there, and met some of the guys over at Kings County Distillery in New York in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Which they make great stuff, and they kind of walked me through a little bit, went on a couple of their tours, and told me like how to get connected with some of the people in the business. And I was like, this could be fun. I'd been in the restaurant business for like 18 years at that point. Was getting kind of tired of it. I knew the restaurant that I was at, we had just peaked at where we were, and usually when restaurants peak, it's pretty much a death sentence. Oh. And because we were getting reviewed by a Michelin Guide and that. So like once you hit that, it's either maintain that level or find something else to do, and the maintenance is just boring. And the area we were in wasn't that great, so we were struggling, even though we were getting the notoriety. And I just didn't have it in me to start over again. I was 36 at that time, and I just didn't want to take over another restaurant. It's worse than starting a regular job, because you're usually hired to either to fix something or to make it better or to shut your mouth, and you don't really know until you're like 6 months into it what the direction is. So you have to invest all that time. And I was like, I don't want to work for anybody anymore. And I made so many people millions of dollars, and I was just like, for those of you who haven't been in the restaurant business, it's a brutal business. Make no mistake about it. And it's nasty, and New York is, brutal like that to begin with. So he's, piling on. I was just, so long story short, I packed up my shit and I moved to Florida to go work for one of my former chefs. And, that was there for a hot minute. And then I ended up getting picked up by Hakkasan to come back to California. All the while, like I had left New York to save money on taxes to move. That's why I moved down to Florida. And then I ended up going to California because they offered me a bunch of money. Even though with the taxes, I was still in the same boat, but I was trying to save money specifically to do this. And then, one more jaunt back to Florida after about a year and a half back in California, which is where I'm from. And then lockdowns hit, 3 months after I moved back to Florida. And immediately I was like, it's now or never. And, I stuck it out for the 2 weeks. That was 6 months, and called my dad up one day. I was like, "Hey, Dad, I'm coming home. I'm not going to stay here, and this is what I want to do." And so he got on a plane, and we drove back across the country together with all my crap, and told him, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm at. I'm done. I'm done with the restaurants for now. I don't want to go back and do it because I went through '08." And I knew what was going to happen in the restaurant industry. It was exactly the same what I saw, and I was like, this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to do it, and c'est la vie. And now I'm here 4 years later. I came out here and randomly found the place after watching a show on the History Channel about Kit Carson. I stayed up all night watching that, and I was like, I'm going to Carson City. And then I found Mountain House.
That's so cool.
And then I found this building, and now we're sitting here having a chat. It's a really random story, but yeah.
That's cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about the product.
Yeah.
Let's get into the brass tacks here. Now, walk me through the process, the iterations, the mindset. Like, how did we get here? What did we start with? So
this whole mash bill. So it's wheat malt, wheat and oats. That's what I use for my mash bill. So I make my own malt, wheat malt specifically, and I do that mill that specifically myself. So the reason I chose those is a two-part reason. My mom used to send me oatmeal chocolate chip raisin cookies in New York twice a year for Christmas and my birthday in July. So oats were always very, very important to me because it was a reminder of home. And I was, big into bodybuilding for a long time, so oats were just a huge part of my diet. And then I started reading more about the potato famine and how Scotch developed into what it is now, and realizing that oats were actually the brewer's grain in Western Europe forever until the potato famine. And I was like, hey, let's bring it back. And then I was like, how do I get my mom's cookies in the bottle? And I was like, wheat and oats are a portion of that. And so I started messing with that. It took about 3 years to find a mash bill that I liked, going through individual distillations of each grain, malted, unmalted, in different proportions. And I would mad chemists, drop by drop to figure it out, and recorded all that. And did some barrel samples and some made my own oak chips in my oven and toasted them my way and tried to so I could figure out what was going on. I had access to a cryovac, so I could pressurize and quick age. Not really quick aging, but at least pull the liquid into the wood a little bit faster. And I started realizing what I wanted. So I came out here, went straight to work on that mash bill. I released the white whiskey, which would have been traditional in the Western frontier, because if you have never been to Nevada, there are no oak trees here. So I felt that was really important, and just for the heritage of it, and trying to bring as much authenticity to what I'm doing, even though I'm an outsider looking in. And ultimately, the barrel aged stuff, the stuff you see behind us, it literally comes out tasting like chocolate and raisins, and it just hit exactly what I wanted. And so this past year, I started messing with other iterations. I got a wheat whiskey that's out. That's second use barrels. That's awesome. Super excited about that. I don't think there's enough wheat whiskeys on the market. But I took my oat mash bill and I turned it into a whole bunch of other stuff. Started getting some requests for very high proof hazmat whiskey, which is what ended up this one right here, the Queen of Hearts. It's a triple distilled whiskey. Same mash bill, wheat malt, wheat and oats, but it's distilled to 75%. So it'll light you up, but it serves a lot of purposes as far as like cocktails, which is kind of more my background with food. And it can be used like a saline solution or the way you would use a bitters and that. And then I thought that was so cool. I was like, yo, let's take down the honey whiskey market, because honey and whiskey are good together, period. But a lot of the honey whiskey, it's too syrupy. It's too much honey texture. But by adding a ton of honey and only honey to the Queen of Hearts, I'm able to get this super intense honey flavor, because it's about 20% honey. But it still drinks like a fiery whiskey.
It does.
So it's super dry. You don't have to deal with that. It makes it's awesome in iced tea. It's a one-stop shop. And then, something fun I thought I'd do for the holidays. I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for it. Actually, I already have. Flavored whiskey, but not artificial. Let's put it that way. So the Kringle's Cut, it's the same distillate that makes both of these products and all these products except for the Poe whiskey. It's double distilled, same thing that goes in the barrels. I water it down. I add a bunch of mulling spices and fruits into it, and I let it macerate like a gin. And then I pull it out overnight, and then I distill it to proof like a brandy would be done. So it's got some different techniques in it. Still drinks like a whiskey. Make no doubt, make no mistake about that. But I just thought it'd be something cool other than I got barrels. Like what else can we do? Part of being a chef is like, hey, you got this one thing. How many ways can you use it? So I got the hair up my ass to be a chef with my one ingredient. So, and now I've had a few requests for some other random stuff. It's probably going to be an almond whiskey coming out, probably late winter, which should be interesting because amaretto is awesome. And amaretto sour is awesome. But
right.
what if you didn't have to deal with all that sweetness, but you could still taste the almond? So that's kind of where I'm gearing towards now with the bar program that I'm developing. So we'll see what comes over the next couple of years, but there's definitely gonna be some weird shit that I know I'm gonna get flack for, but that's fine.
Let's take it back just a little bit to the Kringle's Cut.
Yeah,
because the last time I was here, you let me try this, and it was all, well, I guess not all. I mean, not that all of them weren't, but this one was probably the most interesting.
Yeah,
but yet they were all still so good. Like they're all very one-off to anything that I've ever had before. Which is I think really cool.
Yeah.
A really neat market that you're entering. It's kind of a league of your own, right?
Yeah,
you're doing things a little bit differently. You're taking your background.
Yeah, like I'm looking at a distillery not as a spirit producer, but as a flavor producer. So one of the things about the restaurant industry, like you're not going to put it on your shelf if you can't make money with it, plain and simple. And that's how I approach it. So, doing one-off unique things, I think have significant value just for the creativity and because, you could put it on a menu and nobody else is going to have it. There are not really many distilleries that work exclusively with restaurants to produce cordials, spirits, whatever, bitters, like that, not yet anyway, and I'm really looking into that market to find someone who either wants to let me produce everything for their bar menu, or I'll just do it myself and go back to my tapas style restaurants and do a heavy cocktail bar focus. Because I think that could be fun where you have your seasonal menus with some one-off cool stuff using the base. Like my oat base is good. Like it's solid. It absorbs flavors very, very well. It's super sweet. even for a whiskey, like it's definitely on the sweet side, which is great for cocktails because you put so much acid in it. So, well, I have no idea where I'm going to end up going with it, but I think the one-off unique products they're fun, and give you something to look forward to. You used to look forward to like watching a show once a week or getting a magazine once a month. Once a year we come out with something funky.
I think that's cool. Yeah.
So
I think that's a good. Now, right now, you're. What's your distribution looking like? Like where are people where are you able to get your stuff?
So right now I'm self-distributing, but I'm talking to a couple other distributors for the state of Nevada. You can order most of this online. The small bottles will be up probably next week or so. A little bit slow getting that into California because they have to go to California. Like for those who don't know, all the online liquor sales come out of San Diego, so you got to be imported into California. But locally here in Reno, Midtown, Chapel Tavern, Z-Bar, Public House, might see it at the Rose soon with Caesars. Working with them. It's just slow grind.
Sure,
Locally here down Mount House, you won't find it, unfortunately, but you can come straight to me. And there goes the dog, and that's Emmett. Yeah, it's been a struggle with the distributors. I found out the hard way the distributors aren't salesmen. I'm the salesman. My dad helps me as well, do tastings. We got about 60 customers in the Reno Sparks area, and then I got a few customers in New York as well.
Okay.
And yeah, so we're rebooting again. So we'll see what happens with the new distributor, but we'll know in the next probably month or so.
I saw on your social media, I think it was on Instagram, that I don't know, it's an event or something like that in New York. You were there. Tell me about that.
So yeah, the New York Cocktail Expo. So I left New York 2016, 2017, and honestly never wanted to go back. I was there long enough. I was like, I've done my time, and then I got an invite to the New York Cocktail Expo. It was their 15th year running. I knew about it. It's always sold out. Usually 2,000 to 3,000 people, and you get essentially the best. Well, every bar in New York is pretty badass, even the shitholes. But you get 20, 30 bars in there. They bring their mixology team, and they make these cocktails. There's a tiki contest, and then there's a cocktail of the year contest. So I partnered with A10 Kitchen. So shout out to Yvonne Dellin. Appreciate your creativity and your execution. You guys did an amazing job. We went there. We did both cocktails. So we did the tiki cocktail, and then we did the cocktail of the year. Such a cool event. Shout out to Hannah Mizrahi, who does the event. Probably 1,500 people because the weather turned to shit, but it ended up storming like crazy in the middle of the event. But super cool event. If you haven't been, it's worth going. You're going to taste stuff it's completely one-off. There's liquor brands there. Obviously, I was there. But mostly it's independent bars and restaurants, showing off what they can do with whatever spirit they've chosen to do. So everything there was killer, like amazing. I had some great mezcal there, actually. Mezcal cocktails have become a really big thing, especially in New York, right before I left. But so there was tons of that. The tiki competition was crazy. Like whatever you imagine a tiki cocktail competition to be, it's exactly what you're painting in your head. Like people dressed up, these crazy cups, and the only thing we couldn't do is like light things on fire because it's New York. But super cool event. Definitely plan on going back there, doing it again next year, bringing some new stuff, and probably going to design everything and make everything soup to nuts in-house at this distillery. So we'll make all the bitters, all the cordials, the liqueurs, the spirits, everything that's going into the cocktail will be made in-house.
Wow.
So it won't be buying shit from nobody, which nobody's doing that yet. So But it's a super cool event. You should come next year.
Shit.
You should come.
That's a long ways away from home. I don't know if I'm gonna do it. It
No,
sounds cool, man.
I was only there for 2 days, so I was in and out. So it was a rough 2 days for sure. But it's a really cool event. I'm definitely going back, and I hope it gets bigger.
Right.
So.
How long has it been? How long has it been going for?
15 years.
Oh, no shit.
So yeah, it's been around a while, and an average 2,500, 3,000 people.
Jeez.
It's pretty good. And there's two sessions. There's like, I think it was 4 to 6, and then there was like a meet and greet hour where we didn't really meet. We just sat around and got drunk.
Yeah.
But and then there's the second session that's I think it was from like 7 to 9. But yeah, the first session was just, we just got pummeled, just because you're giving out samples, but you're making the cocktail to order. So, Yvonne was shaking cocktails nonstop, and the other girls there, she was shaking cocktails nonstop. And since we had 2 cocktails, it got a little dicey at times, but they did a great job, and there was just a lot of cool flavors there. It was great energy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And someone from your background probably has a little bit more admiration for, a respect for the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, I bet.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've only ever dated bartenders, so that was always, part of the mixology thing. And yeah, with my background as a chef, like we always try to coordinate cocktails with food because we want them to sell together, and that's how you upsell. It's the easiest thing to pair something with a cocktail that people are gonna like, and like, okay, well, let's design at least one dish to go with a cocktail. And it helps service out a lot, and helps the bartenders out because they're not making a bunch of random stuff, especially when the cocktail menus get beyond like 10 drinks.
Sure.
It can get a little dicey.
Yep.
Cocktails are fun, man.
Yeah. It's because I don't necessarily get into that anymore. I mean, like I was like Jaeger Red Bull, right? As far as I got, but it's neat to watch somebody that has that mindset go in there and actually sit behind the counters, and then try to figure out how to make this better, like get that flavor profile you're looking for. So it's pretty neat that that led you, to.
Like food, like food's easy, like because we all eat food, like we can all conceptualize that. But like making a cocktail from scratch to something off the wall using stuff that nobody's ever used before, like it can get a little screwbally. It can turn out real bad real fast, So like having a spirit palate is a whole different ball of wax.
Wow.
So I tip my hat to those people. The world's 50 best cocktail bars. Like watch some of those bartenders and what they do and how they do it, the hand cut ice and like all that. Like, dude, that's a super crazy craft.
Yeah. Some of the stuff I haven't seen anything nuts, but yeah, I imagine it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and people get super into it. Like there's big bartender contests all the time. There's a big one in Vegas, I know for sure. I think there's one in Singapore. I know there's one in Thailand. Like it's crazy. Like
wow.
the bartender contest. Like you don't really see any chef contests, but the bartender contests have been around for like 50 years. And now we have, what do we have? Food Network.
Right.
Like, and that's not what it used to be. So, the bartending world is pretty cool. It's a very unique industry.
So last time I was here, when we got, and I wanted to really hone in on this one too, because I thought as we are getting into fall and winter, that while it is very different, I think that it really just took me to like a northern Nevada snowy, like you're just stuck in the house, nothing to do, fires going, getting a little bit of that. What is your idea with this? Like where do you see?
Well, yeah, the Kringles cut is exactly that. Most of us have had mulled cider, mulled wine, sangria, all great stuff. Sangria, you always add brandy to it. Mulled wine is mulled wine. Mulled cider, you put whiskey in it generally, right? But how do we enhance that flavor of that drink with a spirit? Like, do we just pour bourbon in it like everyone usually does with eggnog? It's tradition, right? Well, I want to add more than just alcohol and vanilla to it, So what I would do, like a sangria is a great example because it's got all the different fruits in it. Well, how do I enhance all those other fruits? Well, I come up with something like this that's essentially an extract, right? So, the mulling spice, which is always in, mulled cider, mulled wine, traditional holiday spice. Everybody goes to grandma's house, has gingerbread cookies, and, that familiar homey kind of feel. And I wanted to see if I could even attempt to put it into a bottle, make a spirit out of it without cheating, and using flavored this and flavored that. Like, what can I do as a cook to make it all natural but still be super intense, apple and ginger, and really wanted it to smell like Christmas. And actually, that's one of my buddies when he first opened it. He's like, "Oh shit, it smells like Christmas." And I was like, "Yes, that's exactly what I wanted it to smell like." Short of peppermint, which I'm not a big mint guy. So, but that was my thought. Exactly what you're saying. Sitting by a fireplace, having a cup of spiked hot chocolate. Hot chocolate and peppermint schnapps, it's great. This is going to level up that. Like, that's what it's for. Like, and it probably won't go into big bottles because at 50% alcohol, you don't need a lot. Like, a capful will probably do you in your hot chocolate, and it's just a nice kind of cool, fun flavor that's going on that you can't get anywhere without putting a ton of different items in there.
Right.
So trying to get them all together in one little package.
That's cool, and I think it's neat that you come into this and have that mindset of like, this is what I'm setting out to create, and the iterations that probably come with that, right? A lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, like, when I would used to make dishes for my menu, like, I would start the day we released the menu. I was already working on the next season. It would take me at least a month to even conceptualize the dishes in my brain before I ever got to it. Like, this one, probably I thought about it last year, and too busy filling barrels. But when I got to it a few months ago, I was like, okay, my brain had kind of already worked out a lot of the minutia of what I was going to do, how I was going to go about it. But yeah, it could have gone wrong really fast. Those batches weren't small. They're very expensive to do. I don't have a test still, where I could do a 5-gallon batch and see if it works. No, it's a 100-gallon batch. That's what's going down. So it was 100 gallons of the 2X distillate. So that's, $3 or $4 grand in distillate just for an experiment. So I was like, well, I hope, rolling the dice. I mean, it smelled really good when it was cooking. I'm like, okay, I'm into this, and like, it better taste good, like, because it could smell good and taste like crap. So, just super happy with it. I can't wait to do another funky experiment. I mean, it's not that far off of funky, like,
No, it's not. I was very surprised. I mean, all of them, honestly. I mean, everything, it was like, even when we get in, the higher proof stuff, 75%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, I was expecting it to be like rubbing alcohol, like just real alcohol, but it was not even like that at all. Yeah,
it's funny you mentioned the Queen of Hearts to 75%. A lot of people like it. Like, a lot of people. I've been pleasantly surprised with comments like you, and people are like, "Oh wow, this is really good. What proof is this?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't even talk in proof anymore. The numbers are too big." Like, "Well, it's 75% alcohol," and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, like, don't chug it. That's for sure."
Right,
but it's super smooth. It's super sweet, and I think that's one of the things that surprises people a lot is how sweet it becomes.
Yeah.
But if you're a distiller, like, this is what you're looking for. You're looking for these clear, sweet distillates, and pretty much every distiller I've met, this is like what they drink on a daily basis. Scotch is usually distilled fairly high proof, and they drink 70-75%. Like, that's a normal thing for them. And now I get it, because I had never made one, but now I made one and I tried. I'm like, yo, this is. Going from the second distillation to the third distillation is dramatic difference. It's, you end up, you get more of the grain in the second distillation. With still, you get some of the sulfites and some of the other impurities, but as the impurities come out, it's just like sugar water. It's crazy. And then I got to some of this stuff aging as well. So we'll see what that brings.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah. So that'll be cool.
That'll be very cool.
Definitely be in the 140 proof range. So
And that's one of the things too. I think that as I've gotten a little bit farther on my whiskey journey, when I started off, it was 90 proof was hard.
Yeah.
And it was, but I think as my palate's shifted a little bit, I'm looking for the flavor, the boldness that comes with the higher proof,
Yeah.
and so now it's like it's
hard to go back.
It got expensive real quick.
Yeah, it does get expensive, and then it's funny. So like my mom doesn't drink, right? But at the same point, I'll be like, "Hey, Mom, I want you to try this." She likes the high proof stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I first started doing this and I was getting my parents involved with the tastings, and we're tasting cask strength and stuff. And you're going to have to at some point teach your brain to look past the alcohol, because once you look past the alcohol, then all the flavor comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be very difficult. It's hard. The alcohol burns your lips, it burns your tongue, it makes your mouth go numb, that kind of thing. You got to look past all that. And it takes a while for your palate to adjust your brain to get to that. But the high proof stuff, it's definitely more bang for your buck. And, that's why I'm doing the little bottles first. Cask strength bottle, you're well over $100. No matter what it is. Doesn't matter how old it is, it's starting at $1. Not everybody's got $100 to drop on a bottle that they're going to have a glass out of. Or 2 glasses. Or like you and I hanging out, let's just go. I don't want to go buy a $100 bottle, but I might get a small bottle of cask strength, and you don't really see that. You don't see mini bottles in cask strength. Yeah. But I think that needs to change because cask strengths are great. They're just expensive, and they're not just expensive to the consumer; they're expensive to the producer because the taxes on them are higher. Oh. So the excise tax is based on proof gallons, so it's. The formula has to kick it down to 50%. That's where the tax baseline is. So if you're above that, you're paying more per gallon. Oh, no shit. So yeah. So the federal government gets all this, the barreled stuff, everything you produce they get paid up front. The state gets paid when it goes in a bottle. So you're already doing high proof stuff in a barrel because that's the standard or requirement actually. But then when you bottle it, the state's getting their piece, and they have their formula and how it has to be calculated, and it gets expensive tax wise.
This is your reminder that taxation is theft.
Yes, they steal from me every week.
That's
so that's why you don't see it. That's why you usually see it in big bottles, just because producing multiple little. Like these are expensive to make versus like one of these. So technically there's a little less than 4 of those in one of these, but I'm dropping this bottle's a third the cost of 4 of these. So and it's only one label.
True.
There's you're only using one of everything, so it's cheaper to produce from that standpoint. So, but back to saying not everybody wants to drop $100, especially, and also like I'm new. You don't know me, so here's a little nip, to take that out.
And you talked about last time that you're going to be looking into getting these in like gift sets and stuff like that. Too, right?
Yeah. So they'll be sold as a bundle pack online, and I'm also working with Envy Luxury Cigar Club. Going to be doing a gift pack with mini bottles and cigars. And
Envy Luxury Cigar Club.
Yeah, in Sparks. Super cool place. If you guys haven't been there, check it out. But I think they're cool there's cool stocking stuffers,
So, yeah.
Like
that's what I'm looking for.
That's you wake up to one of those in the bottom toe of your stocking, you're like, oh, cool, and
cool.
I remember my mom used to wrap round stuff, and that was always like, what's the round thing,
Mm-hmm.
And the bottle shape, I didn't want to do that traditional flask bottle that everybody does or whatnot. I wanted it to be somewhat similar to what I had, easy to carry around. It doesn't take a flask bottle take up your whole pocket. This will not. You know, you want to throw it in your pocket and go to the movies and have a drink. You know,
Now we're talking.
I'm just saying. But yeah, it'll make your soda taste a lot better. So, you know.
Let's talk about this one then for a little bit.
The Poe?
Yeah, let's talk about the Poe.
All right, so I like wheat whiskey a lot. I don't think there are many of them out on the market anymore. They're very hard to find. And so I actually just had leftover malt and leftover wheat a couple years ago, because when I order my oats, so I ordered oats and wheat, and I have that milled to my spec, but you know, I make my own malt, but it doesn't always balance out equally. I almost always run out of oats first.
Okay.
So I had the stuff, you know, I was done for the season. It was June, and I was like, well, I'm not doing it now because it gets too hot and it doesn't ferment right and it flies and it's just a nightmare. So I don't brew during the summer. But I had this stuff left over, and I just wanted to get it out of my warehouse. I'm like, well, I'm gonna make a wheat whiskey, and so I was like, so I made 3 different versions, and taking it back to my parents, like, okay, this is what I made, and they're like, which one do you like? And you know, we all just happened to like the same distillate.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
That's a first.
Yeah, random blind test. I didn't know which ones they were. We tasted it, like I had marked them with colors and hid the book and hid the guide. And we tried it, and we all ended up liking the same one, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna put this in a barrel, and we're gonna see what happens. And then so I made a small batch, barreled it, you know, just 1 barrel, by the way, just as a 1 barrel batch. It was a very tiny experiment. Plus I only had, you know, like a couple 100 pounds of grain, so it doesn't make that much. And then it sat outside during that winter we had a couple of years ago. It's only aged outside. It's in, you know, the same barrels as second use. Didn't know what was going to happen. It had 15 feet of snow on it, and then, you know, crazy hot summer, and then last year it was a really dry winter. But last year when I tried it, I was like, okay, this is something. And I'm like, but I'm not going to touch it because I would have fucking started drinking it. But I'm like, I should make more of this. So I ended up having more leftover wheat. And so I barreled some more, and it's sitting outside now. And then this year I popped it up, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? I only got 1 barrel. It's really good now. And the owner of Beer Studio in Carson City, he was like, why don't you just sell it for Nevada Day? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Just a one-off thing for Nevada Day only. And so that's where, you know, I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna bottle it. Now I got to come up with a label, and now I got to, you know, get all this other stuff going. But I'm super happy with it, the way it turned out. It's my favorite product right now. I wish I had more of it. There's only 141 of those little bottles. And they're going quick. Yeah, people have already found out about it. I've told a couple people about it. They're like, you know, they're buying them fast. So, but next year, you know, it's going to go into full production. Well, micro production, I would say. You know, it's only be a half dozen barrels for next year. But,
okay.
But yeah, but I'll do the same thing. You know, it'll just be a Nevada Day release.
That's cool.
You know, like,
very smart.
You know, I think Nevada Day Parade. I went first time last year. It's fucking cool. I get why locals don't want to go, because it's like Times Square. When I lived in New York, I didn't want to go there either. But I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. Saw some stuff I've never seen before, including like the rock drilling. You ever watch that? Yeah. That was cool, man. Yeah. The crazy amount of work that went into, you know, hollowing out these mountains, like, is insane. No shit. It's insane. Yeah. But it's super cool, man. And I was like, yeah, I want to do something special, like. And so we decided that that's what I was going to do special, and then it all kind of snowballed into a bunch of other stuff. But the wheat whiskey, you know, it tastes exactly like French toast and toffee, and just exactly what you want a wheat whiskey to be. But it's not dry like most wheat whiskeys are. Mm-hmm. You know, it's got a sweet syrupy finish, which I thought was kind of cool, because the last wheat whiskey I had that I liked was very dry, very thin. They're great for summertime because they're like that. They're very light whiskeys. But the barrel added a ton of flavor to it in a way that I was just not expecting. So, you know, shout out to the Barrel Mill for hooking up these barrels. You know, they do amazing job. Wish they could cut down on the shipping, though. Just saying. But yeah, it just came out amazing. Super, super excited about it.
So you had earlier you had mentioned your connection with your family. Your dad came out here with you.
Yeah, my parents moved out here. So I'm from Newport Beach, California, and I decided that I had told them like California had just really turned rotten, and I was like, you can't stay. I don't want you guys to stay here anymore, and I'm moving to Nevada. And my dad calls me. He's like, hey, can we move up there with you? I'm like, great, sure, fine. Why would you even ask? So they moved up almost right behind me. Like 6 months later, I was looking for houses for them while they were still down there, and they came up here. They found a house that was being built, and they moved into an apartment. And it was 3 years ago. Now they've been in their house for 2 years, or almost 2 years. So, and they live in South Reno. And then they're intimately involved with all of this now.
And that's kind of what I wanted to get into. So so your mom doesn't drink, but she still helps you with all the selection and all that stuff. Your dad, and I think we talked about it. He's really involved, right? I mean, he does a lot.
He does a lot. He does all the tasting, almost all the tastings in Reno and Sparks, because I'm usually down south here making stuff, so I can't be in two places at once. And especially now that we self-distribute, and even if we had a distributor, like we have to be in the field every day, and getting stuff in front of people. So he does that every day. Gets in his fucking Porsche. He earned that shit. And he goes around and he samples people on this stuff on my behalf. And then when somebody wants something, they usually reach out to me. Hey, come in. I want to talk to you about how we get it on the menu. And because that's always the big sell, But I send him out. He's got my price guide. He's got my cocktail book that we have to present to people. He's got all those descriptions. And he leaves like with a briefcase and a bunch of
That's
whiskey.
Cool. That's a cool briefcase.
Yeah, right, for sure.
And then, do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have a sister in Houston. I don't talk to her much.
Didn't want to get into the whiskey business.
No.
Yeah.
We're on different life streams.
That happens. So just essentially just you, your mom, and your dad just out here crushing it, huh?
Yep, that's what we're doing every day. We're trying to.
That's cool. That's cool.
My mom watches all my money. My dad watches me drink all the whiskey, and then I come out here and make more whiskey. So yeah, before I do anything, they're my audience. Hey, I want to do this or I want to make this. What do you guys think? Is it worth it? Is it a waste? Is it a waste of time? Especially now that my dad is really out there in the market, he's got a really good sense of what's going on and what people are drinking, what kind of cocktails are going on menus, and that kind of thing. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, if you wanted to know where to go, he would probably be the one to go ask, not me.
So when you first started on this venture, and I would assume, maybe even taking it back to the restaurant industry, did they think you're crazy for getting into this? When you got, you're like, hey, I'm leaving restaurants. I'm gonna start making whiskey.
Well, they hated me being a cook for about a decade. Pretty much my whole family, I was the outcast for doing that because I didn't go to college, and or I did, but it didn't last. It was never something I wanted to do. And when I became a cook, cooks don't make any money. Long hours. It's a really tough work environment. It's hot. It's dangerous. You get yelled at all the time. So they couldn't understand that world. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. And, when eventually that relationship got patched up, and when I was in New York, and they were there for that sauce that I did, and so I kind of told them kind of thinking about maybe selling pitchforks and shovels instead of gold mining, kind of deal. And I've seen so many of my friends and colleagues reach this super elite level in their chef careers just to have it ripped out. This restaurant closes, burns down, any number of things. Restaurants are not a profitable business on any level. They require so much effort for so little reward other than personal satisfaction. And I had tried to open up restaurants with investors in the past. And I was like, man, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. It's a nasty industry. It's very shady. Not that this business isn't, but or that any business isn't. But I started flirting with the idea, and I pitched it to him. Like the week before I left to move to Florida the first time from New York, I told my parents, like, hey, I'm leaving New York. I'm moving to Florida. I want to start a distillery, so I'm going to go save money in Florida. And I think they kind of saw it coming, but I did it really abruptly. And even my girlfriend at the time, I was like, I'm out. You can come or not. I couldn't care less. But I'm leaving, and this is what I'm going to go do. So yeah, there was definitely a little shell shock, and then when lockdowns happened, I was like, look, I'm doing this. Like, you guys can get on board with me or not, I don't care, but I'm doing this one way or another. And they're like, okay. I mean, at that point, what are they gonna say? I'm an adult. This is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, it's gonna work.
We had talked a little bit about the lockdown, right? What does that look like for your business? How did that affect you?
Well, I mean, I was just like the restaurant business, or
let's talk about
started this.
Yeah, when you're starting this.
So, opening a business is always a shit show. Everything was a shit show. So ironically, the easiest part about it was dealing with the government institutions and getting all the paperwork done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was super easy. They were super, super helpful. I was not expecting the amount of help.
Yeah, that really surprises me.
Yeah, the woman, I don't know if she's still there, but the headquarters of the TTB, she spent like 4 hours on the phone with me and helped me fill everything out.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, she's like, email it to me.
Huh.
And I was, the amount of help that I've gotten in the liquor industry in these 4 years dwarfs the amount of help that I got in 20 years in the restaurant industry. Yeah. There's not much camaraderie in the restaurant industry. It's very, very cutthroat. The liquor industry, not so much. Everybody's chill. Everybody wants to help each other, from government officials down to farmers. And you're dealing with everything in between. Everybody's been super cool and helpful. So I mean,
that's cool.
It was a big shock coming from New York as a chef, like where nobody gives a fuck, to this business, this industry, and then this part of Nevada. Like it's totally not what I was expecting, but super happy that I found it.
So you're building warehouse. You've been in it for a few years.
Yep. And
it is interesting. I mean, when I came here last time, you had all the grains were on just chilling.
Yep.
You had it's neat to come in here and actually see it being put to work.
Yeah, it's about to go into production. Yeah, you got here when I was still making malt, so floor malt, which is traditional, and the fermenters will come back in next week. Just waiting for deer season to be done, and then I'll officially start brewing again. But yeah, all the fermenters that were outside, those will all come in. They'll get lined up against the wall. More grain will go into the center, so I don't got to go back and forth. There'll be another 3 tons of grain over there sitting there. I'll blow through that almost weekly. So like Thursday, I'll do all my mashing. So I'll cook all my grain off on Thursday. It'll be like 1,500 gallons. 1,500 gallons. Well, like 1,300 gallons is about what it comes out to out of 100 gallons still. So it's a lot of fucking work to get those fermenters up and going. And then that will sit, generally 3 days. I'll start distilling it. And it'll be a 24-hour operation till summer. 7 days a week. Maybe I'll take a day off here and there, but it'll be cranking nonstop. Still runs overnight. I got cameras and whatever, emergency shutoffs, and so sometimes I don't go home. I just sleep on the couch here. But yeah, there's really only way I'd get away with using that small still is taking advantage of manufactured enzymes, which are super important. Malting is developing the amylase enzyme to convert starch into glucose. But wheat doesn't really produce a lot of it. That's why barley is usually traditionally used, because it produces more of that enzyme. But everybody uses enzyme to get the most out of their product. So I buy an enzyme that makes the starch chains smaller, and then when they go in the fermenter, then I add the other one to help make sure all the sugar is converted. I mean, when it goes into the fermenter, it's sweet. It's super, super sweet. It tastes like an over-sugared bowl of oats or cream of wheat when it goes in. But just to make sure I get all the starch converted, I put a little bit of that enzyme in there to make sure that's done. But I think it's the gluco alpha amylase. It's the one that shortens the chains. So I can put a little under 500 pounds of grain into that 100-gallon still and 50 gallons of water and cook it without it being like rock solid. And it's still thin, like it's like the consistency of milk. But if I didn't have that, there would be no way I could produce that amount with that still. There just wouldn't be enough water for it to cook in.
Do you ever see yourself outgrowing that? I mean,
yeah. Last year I pushed that still. I was well beyond what I did the previous year, and I really wanted a kettle to cook the mash, so I didn't have to deal with it in the still. But ideally, I think 2,000 gallons would be where I would want to go. But run multiples of those. Like if I could get 2,000 gallons, I think that's a manageable range for one person.
I was gonna say, so we're still talking about one guy.
Yeah, still talking about one guy. Yeah.
Okay.
And the only reason I wouldn't do one big batch is just, I can't imagine what a 10,000 gallon still would cost. Probably a lot more than 5 twos. Probably. And it would take a long time to build. Go out to like Vendome Copper and Brass Company, like you're 2 years on a still with them. It's all hand rolled copper. But I think that still I would continue to use it to produce the final distillate and use the bigger ones as more of like stripping stills. Because that still is super similar to what I made all my experiments in. Yeah. So like, I had a stainless steel pot and I welded a copper lid or a copper bowl to it. That was my experimental still in my apartment in New York. That's the same thing. So it's, I got the stainless steel bane and then it's got a copper head on it. So it has those best of both worlds. Now it doesn't remove as much sulfur because it's not solid copper. But it's exactly the flavor profile that I had made. So I'm like, well, I'm not gonna fuck with it.
So all the science behind this,
yeah.
Where are you gaining this information from? YouTube University?
No, books.
Yeah,
books. There's these things with paper. It's wild, man. A lot of books. Talked to a lot of distillers. Like I said, everybody's been super, super helpful.
That's cool.
Because the distilling industry goes well beyond alcohol. Like, stills are used for so much shit. It's mind-boggling. From oil. All our oil products are distilled. My buddy Alex's dad, he was a chemical engineer for the Army, and he had a ton of information because he worked on 200-foot stills. So these things were massive, and they used to make JP8. So that was his thing, jet fuel. And so I got a lot of information from him. Because he did that for 40 years. So he, distillation would like at a level like that's pretty, I'm nowhere near that. I never will be. But so many things are distilled other than just alcohol. But then once you kind of start go through the YouTube University or Google or whatever, like you can go down a rabbit hole really fast. Some of it's secretive. There are bits and pieces. Like I knew about the yeast and the enzymes just because I had been in the restaurant industry and been involved with wineries and that kind of stuff. So I knew from that side. But distilling usually requires a different type of yeast or multiple yeast. Like I use multiple yeast because you end up tasting the yeast in a distillate because it's a concentration. So you don't taste it so much in wine because it's a natural yeast that's stuck on the grapes. Beer, you usually taste, what the air is, because that's where most of the yeast that you put in your product is going to come from. So that's why beer will taste regionally specific. Wine too, because of the natural yeast. But when it comes to distilling, you're trying to get a balance between temperature, time, and bacteria. Because bacteria multiplies like 4 times as fast as yeast. So if you don't get the right amount of yeast and enough of it at the right temperature to kind of outpace the bacteria, like bacteria is going to grow no matter what. You're not stopping that. But you need to get enough yeast in there to give it a fighting chance, because the bacteria will eat the yeast too. So bacteria eats the sugar, it eats the alcohol, and it'll eat the yeast. So you're fighting all those things, trying to get them to work together, and then at the same time, yeast can only live in certain alcohol concentration, and it can only live in certain temperatures. So like anything below 65 degrees Fahrenheit, it's pretty much going to go dormant. And I use a Scotch yeast for that reason, because the natural yeast in Scotland is adapted to colder temperatures.
Oh.
And we're in northern Nevada, and it's fucking cold in the winter. So
Interesting.
yeah.
So there's a lot of science.
Yeah. There's a lot of science.
It's neat, because you'd think that you would coming from a place that, where you came from. They're just reading and learning all this. You said earlier you literally didn't go to college, and it just seems like a lot of this stuff, that's where the information. So I mean, good on you for taking it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I've always been. If I wanted to do something, I just went out and fucking did it. Yeah. When I moved to New York, I grabbed my backpack and my knife kit and was like, peace, I'm getting on a plane, and that was whatever. I don't really think about it until after I've done it. Yeah. That kind of thing. But it was interesting to read and go through all that stuff, and a lot of the books are almost borderline childish. Oh. They're not like academic style books. Like, stupid drawings in them, and it's just like, dude, I just want the information. Those kind of things are difficult to find, but you got to read all of them, because I have the screwy little moonshiner books to the chemistry books, and they all have something useful in them. So you don't judge it. I mean,
if you look historically at bootleggers, right? I mean, I don't know that some of these dudes out in the hills, like they're making this shit that is making them go blind, right? And it's, I guess, you trial and error, and then sometimes the error is, the level of errors is, if you're the one that got to drink it first, not so good, right?
Yeah.
But I guess it's more practice, and you get into a habit of doing something. But there's so many different variables in your business, right? There's in your cocktail, in your cocktail. Yeah. But I don't know. It would, a lot of shit can go wrong. So when you were talking about having, something 5 times, 6 times the size of that, or whatever, when you end up getting to that, and then something goes wrong, and then there goes everything, right? So to your point of having 5 2000s, I think that's maybe a smart play, because if
if you fuck up one, you still got the other 4 that are okay. Yeah. And believe me, I've fucked up batches in here. Like, I'm tired. It's dark. I get to work. It's 4:00 in the morning when I drive. I don't see the sun for 3 hours. And I don't really go outside when I'm inside all day. Other than to let the dog out. And I've burned batches, and it sucks, because I got to get it. I got to get it all out. Usually when if it gets like scorched is like manageable, but if it's burnt, and that does happen, unfortunately, usually the drain is clogged. So that means, okay, how do I get this out? I got to take like a sump pump to get this sludge out. Then I got to boil it out, because I can't get the drain valve open. So I got to fill it back with water, got to boil that shit for like 6 hours. Then hopefully the drain will pop open and I can pump everything out. And then I got to climb in there and clean it. physically climb inside. That's how stills are cleaned. People physically climb inside of them, and when it's burnt, it sucks. And I don't have time to wait for it to cool down. So once it's boiled out and I get out whatever I can, I'll fill it back up with cold water, let it sit for an hour. I'll drain the water jacket so that there's just air in there. There's no hot water or whatever residual in there. Let it sit, cool down to maybe sauna temperature, and then strip down and climb into it and clean it. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, we did, one of the things too, I really like to do, this show is Bourbon and Ballistics, and we were talking before we started rolling. We'll kind of shift gears here a little bit. Go hunting. You're a hunter, right?
Yep.
You just got back. You sent me some pictures.
Yep.
You're out there. Didn't see a lot.
No. So I waited 4 years for this tag. Super excited. My neighbor been waiting 4 years too. And we both got tags this year. And so, we've been helping each other out. And he shot black powder over here, Mount Bliss area. Didn't see shit from his whole season. And then I went out Monday. I was gone Monday, Tuesday. Out in Lander County, and didn't see a whole lot other than a lot of people. It blows my mind to be in a hunting zone with a UTV, your entire family, multiple trucks. It doesn't really, I think it's super, super dangerous. People do miss. You can't see through the forest. If you miss, you have no clue. You hope it hits, side of a mountain or a tree. But, I parked up at the top of this ledge, and I saw on both sides of the valley, it's 2 big campsites. I'm like, probably should have moved, shouldn't be here. I should probably leave, but I'm going to go look for signs anyway. So I geared up, and I walked down into the valley. I'd already glassed everything. That's how I found the campsites. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to see if there's even here, or do I go 50 miles from here? And so I geared up, rifle, fucking pistol, everything, and walked down, jumped a couple of doe, found some springs, found some beds, lots of signs, but I'm like, no bucks, it's buck season, so pretty disappointed about that. And then I packed up and left and went about 5 miles north, away from all the people that was, way off, a couple miles off road, and spent the night out there. Woke up early next morning. Same deal. Geared up, spotting scope, tripod, rifle, all the heavy stuff, and walked around this ledge, this plateau where I was sleeping, and to get down into this other valley. And found a hide that I showed you. It'd probably been shot the day before. Small. It's kind of a shame to see, big 50 cal black powder hole inside of a small buck. But but at least there were signs that they were there. And I walked further down, and I know where I'm going this Monday. I got a pretty good plan in place, and cross my fingers. Cross my fingers right now, because the season's so short.
So how much longer do you got?
I got until the 20th, but technically Monday and Tuesdays are my only free days, and I really don't have those days. But I waited 4 years for this tag. I'm going.
Yeah, you gotta do it.
Going one way or another. I gotta at least try. Because it could be another 4 years. And meat's expensive. Between me and my dog, my dog eats a ton of meat, dude. Ton of meat.
Not small.
No, he's not small. He eats more food than I do by a long shot. So
how much does he weigh?
He's pushing 150.
Yeah.
Good boy. He's a really good dog.
It's funny, so you pull up here to the warehouse, and there's a couple shops down the way, and then everybody's got their dogs here, and so you come here, and all these dogs come and greet you, and they're all super cool, a bunch of labs, and then you get Emmett. He's a
Irish wolfhound.
Yeah. He's badass. He's cool.
Yeah, he literally walks over all the other dogs, or they run underneath him. It was just pretty funny.
How old is he?
2.5.
Yeah. He's cool.
Yeah. See, he's still got a little ways to go growth wise, but I think I don't know if it's their natural mentality or if it's because he grew up next to labs, but he is like a lab.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks he's one of them. Mm-hmm. So His brother's a little. My dad has his brother, kind of similar, but I think maybe they kind of rubbed off on each other. But it's a little bit more aggressive, not as friendly to like everybody. But I mean, he is when after about 30 seconds, he's just kind of like at first, a little wary of you. But yeah, they have like mentalities of labs, but stubborn like bulldogs, dude. Like, and they know that they're heavy, so like they don't want to go somewhere. It's really difficult to get them to go.
Yeah. So you bring them with you hunting?
No.
Okay.
I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Although after the last time, I think he would have been fine walking with me. My only concern is that wolfhounds are sight hounds, and they are used for hunting. And they will chase after a deer. They will, and they will bring it down. I don't know how that would go down.
miles away. Like,
yeah, because he's gonna see something like I can't even glass that far. And he's gonna be like boom after it, and he's gonna come back with dead animal hanging out of his mouth. No shots fired. It's I don't know what the legality of that, but we should probably bring dog hunting like that back. Like I don't got to carry any equipment.
Right.
I just
take the dog.
Take a bottle of water for the dog. Like, all right, go. But I definitely will. I want to take him bear hunting. If I can get a bear tag like in Utah next year, I would take him with me. Just more as a safety thing.
Have you? I mean, has he been around guns? I mean,
oh yeah, we shoot in the back all the time.
Fine.
Yeah, he it doesn't bother him. Even the black powder we're shooting, like that's got a big crack to it. Didn't even phase him. Yeah. And I shoot pistols right now. He'll sit next to me and I'll shoot pistols. Like, I'm surprised because most people say, "Oh, you got to start them when they're 3-4 weeks old to get them used."
You don't know any different.
No. And plus, if you've never been to Mountain House, there's gunfire all day long out here. People shoot all day out here, 7 days a week. So it's, I think maybe that.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. He just doesn't know all he knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know anything different.
Well, I'm excited. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if you do get to take him on a bear.
I think it'd be super cool.
Yeah.
He's a black dog, black bear. So, make him a coat.
Yeah. Right.
I think it'd be really cool to get him out there. So I'll cross my fingers for that because I've been putting in for bear tags every year. So, but I might have to go out of state. I think they only issue like 6 tags.
They do.
State of Nevada
right. Yeah. It's really really small. Yeah.
So, but Utah's got a ton of bears.
Well.
More towards like you go towards Mississippi, from both sides. You end up bear country. Black bear country. So, no desire to go to Appalachia and go bear hunting. I probably won't make it out. That forest is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Unless you grow up there.
Gotta know it. Yeah. Know it. Yeah. Well, cool. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? I mean, that I maybe missed about the product?
No, I mean, I appreciate everything. I mean, I think it's really cool that you like the crinkles cut. I think it's really fun, and I think doing a holiday thing, maybe something special for each holiday. I don't know what it is, what I want to do. I know there are some other flavored whiskeys out there, but I want to keep it clear. And I think that's one thing people gotta understand. Like, whiskey is clear. All spirits are clear. They are only colored by the barrel. So to kind of stay true to like the pure flavor of whiskey, it needs to be unaged, but technically this is flavored, right? It's flavored by the barrel. So, I think experimenting with some more seasonal flavors. I've flirted with doing a gin, with all local botanical, like within walking distance botanicals. So there may be something like that, but I'm like, if I can make stuff like this and it's still whiskey, and I don't gotta produce a neutral grain spirit, because that would be distilling this. I'm not set up for it because I have the mushroom cap that I have on there. It won't do that.
Oh.
Yeah, it won't clear. It won't clean out the distillate enough. I would need a column still. Maybe not. It would just just takes so many runs to get it cleaned out.
Yeah.
But I think the distillate works well with other flavors. It doesn't need to be a neutral grain spirit, so why bother? I think there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to come out in the next couple of years. Definitely, this is off to a good start.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the next couple of years, probably 20 or 30 products.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, where can people find you and the products?
You can find me at my warehouse and outhouse. Right now, we're still struggling to get into Total Wine up here in Reno. The White Dove is available down in Vegas and those stores down there. Craft liquor in Midtown Reno carries our Cutthroat whiskeys, 95 proof, and we're slowly getting into more stores. Been really trying to focus on restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
But shoot me up on Instagram, Dovetail Distillery, and I'll happy to provide lists of where to go. Because honestly, off the top of my head, I don't really remember. Especially when the distributors get involved.
Yeah.
It's like once a quarter, I get a list.
Sure.
But all of these two bottles, the Cutthroat and the White Dove, are available online currently. And these, like I said, in the next couple of weeks, will be up and going. Working on shipping costs. That's the only thing about the online business that really sucks is the shipping costs. I'm not Amazon Prime. I can't eat the shipping costs. I'm sorry. But I'm working on it. Trying to help everybody out, give everybody a good deal, especially with the holidays coming up. And everybody, I know everybody's tense right now, so maybe just a little bother. But those are right now the online's focus. We'll see what happens with the stores in the next 30 days.
Okay.
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, please do. And you got a website?
Yep, website dovetaildistillery.com,
Okay.
or you can go straight to the bottle purchasers shop.dovetaildistillery.com. That has all the bottles for sale.
Okay.
They're the same, but that's the direct link.
Awesome. And I'm excited to see the little, the gift packs. I think those are going to do very well. I'm excited to see what Nevada thinks about these in the winter. Hopefully we have a winner this year. I mean, I think that'll be, it's going to be super bitchin' if we're able to, have something going on with that. And I mean, it's not, I'm only honing on that because we're heading into winter. I mean, the rest of these are phenomenal. I had so much fun tasting these all last time. And
I'm hoping for a big snowstorm and a bonfire, and
yeah,
that's what it's for.
Yep.
Exactly what it's for.
Awesome. Well, thank you for letting me come hang out with you for a little bit.
Man.
I appreciate it.
You have me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Joel Potter. This is Bourbon and Ballistics. I want to thank you for tuning in. Please like, comment, and share these, the shorts and the episodes. It's a huge help for me. We are getting beaten down by the algorithm. I'm getting, very little traction. I've had so many cool guests. The reason I'm doing this is so we can push these cool stories out to the world. At least we'll start with the country right now. But yeah, the algorithm's beating the shit out of me. So I need you guys to give me a hand. If you like what you see, please share it. You can find us on all the socials at Bourbon and Ballistics, and we're now on Apple Podcasts. So if you prefer that versus the other platforms, we're there at Bourbon and Ballistics Podcast. So until next time, I'm Joel Potter, and thanks for hanging out.
State lines with hillbillies and guns. It's been a hell of a ride and a whole lot of fun.